Welcome to the Viking Central podcast. Ryan Jones here. Quick shout out to our sponsor. That's Badass Wood Art. Save 15% at checkout. Use code VC15. Visit that'sbadasswoodart.com. All right, real quick, everyone. I'm gonna lay this to bed. We're gonna put this to rest once and for all. I sent something out to the Twitterverse yesterday, not even realizing it was just going to trigger the entire fan base. Although that's probably naive on my part. I probably should have known better. However, check it out. All I said, all I said, verbatim, what if I told you Vikings failed Kirk Cousins more than Kirk failed the Vikings? And again, I don't want to harp on Kirk Cousins anymore. He's gone. We got to move on. But I was reflecting just like you do. Like if you let's say you got out of a long-term relationship, you're gonna go back, you're gonna reevaluate, you're gonna look at some things that went well, some things that didn't go so well, and you're gonna say, oh, maybe I could have done things a little differently for it to work out. And maybe it worked, maybe it doesn't. But my whole point, when you look back at the Kirk Cousins experience in Minnesota, there's no question the dude can ball, right? But there's also no one on planet Earth saying he is Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, one of these quarterbacks that's going to take whatever roster you have and elevate them to the next level. The Vikings knew that. They knew that. They knew who he was, right? They still decided to pay him that money. You can argue up and down all you want whether he's worth the contract or not. The whole point that I was trying to get across is they knew exactly who Kirk Cousins was when they brought him in. And if you know that and you pay him that, then it's your responsibility, if you want to win, to still build a roster around him. And yeah, if he's going to take up a big portion of your salary cap, obviously you're going to need some cheap young players. And how do you do that? Well, you do it through the draft, first of all. Let's take a look. Since Kirk Cousins landed in Minnesota, the draft picks in first, second round. In 2018, Mike Hughes and Brian O'Neill, first, second round picks. Brian O'Neill, great. Mike Hughes, come on. Next year, 2019, Garrett Bradbury, Irv Smith. That's round 1 and 2. Round 3, Alexander Madison. Don't get me going on Garrett Bradbury. And who did he replace, by the way? Pat Elflein? I mean, they had no help on the interior O-line the entire time Kirk was there. How do you expect a pocket passer to have any kind of success with pressure up the middle almost all the time? And come on, that's what it was. Pressure up the middle. And that's a detriment, especially to a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. But again, if the Vikings if they just looked at it holistically, the way the Rams looked at it with Matt Stafford, and they said, look, we know who you are, Matt Stafford. You have a terrible record as a quarterback, but we know that you're talented. And we know if we put a team around you, we can win. And that's what the Rams did. They brought him in. They signed some big free agents, huge free agents, and they put a great team around him with a great O-line, and they won a Super Bowl. And then they immediately went into cap hell. Well, the Vikings never really did that. You can't tell me they did, and you can't tell me that it's Kirk Cousins' contract fault, because they still had enough space. They signed some crazy contracts to some defenders that clearly didn't live up to their contracts. And I'm talking about Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr and Xavier Rhodes, okay? So you're paying out those massive contracts. Yeah, then it becomes pretty hard. I totally agree to be able to put together a team to win a Super Bowl when you have that plus a quarterback taking up a big chunk of your salary cap. But my whole point overall is the Vikings knew who he was. They knew what they had to pay him, and they still did not put a team around him. He's not the guy. He's not the Patrick Mahomes. We know that. He's not someone who's going to take a team and elevate them regardless of who else is on the roster. Okay? So if you know that and you still go forward with it, At that point, it's up to you to build the team around him. So that's what did they fail him by paying him a ton of money? No, of course not. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is they never really built the roster up enough, like you have to do through the draft. Their draft picks were failures. Jeff Gladney, Ezra Cleveland, Cam Dantzler. I mean, Kellen Mond was a third round pick in 2021. And yeah, they hit on Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, and Brian O'Neill. Outside of that, I mean, Lou Sign, Andrew Booth, Ed Ingram. I think the jury's still out on Ed Ingram. I will say that. And I think if you brought in a good center, then Ed Ingram will be successful. And everyone's coming at me like, oh, you're saying Jordan Addison, TJ Hawk. He had TJ Hawkinson for a season. Oh, I guess basically a full season if you combine both years, and Jordan Addison for like 8 games before he got hurt. Like, come on, you can't even compare those. And they never solidified an interior defense. And more importantly, for Kirk to succeed, they never solidified interior offensive line. And you can't tell me they did. I mean, you got Kenny Clark sitting in your lap every time you drop back to throw the ball. You're not going to have success. So this is it. These are the final words. I'm going to leave the Kirk Cousins thing alone. Again, it was just a reflection back to his time, me thinking out loud. You know, we really knew what he was and didn't do anything to help support him. And I mean, if you want to argue that, then fine. I'm not here to argue if Kirk Cousins was a good quarterback or what happened on 4th and 8 in the playoff game against the Giants when we had a negative point differential and a terrible defense. All right. I'm not here to argue all that. I'm not saying I'm like going to be a Falcons fan now because Kirk Cousins is now with the Falcons. No. What I'm saying is if you're going to bring him in and you're going to pay him that, you're bringing him in to win a Super Bowl. Well, go do what you have to do and build the roster around it and stop failing at the draft. And I hope we've learned our lesson. Looking forward now, yeah, it is really exciting time to be a Vikings fan. But it's going to be a really unexciting time if we miss on a quarterback. Anyway, that's all. That's all for now. Till next time, everybody chill.